All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the Sports Card Therapist, where I give you a behind the scenes look at my hobby hustle and sprinkling some self care and wellness on top of that. I'm Rob Gerard, your Sports Card Therapist. And whether if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, or watching on YouTube, welcome to the podcast. And I am excited for today's episode. Today's episode 193. For those of you keeping count, that's probably just me because no one else is. I am here with the man, friend of the show, friend of the hobby from Sports Cards Live. I'm here with Jeremy Lee. Jay Lee, how you doing, man?
I am doing great, Rob. What a pleasure to be here with you. It's been too long. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, definitely. I mean, I figure, you and I, we're in contact weekly. We talk weekly, and I've just been watching how much you've been doing, and it's crazy to say because a year ago, if I looked back, I would have said, well, there's not much more Jeremy Lee can do, right? But in the last year, especially the last 6 months, I feel like you've just seen continued growth in the hobby, and even though there's a lot going on outside of us that we're going to cover and is the catalyst for you coming on the show, but I said, man, this guy has been on a roll, just killing it recently. So talk to me about how you've been able to stay sane through all of this hobby stuff that you're doing, because you're fully in it. This is your job, this is what you do. So talk to me a little bit about how the hobby has changed for you, just say since the last national.
Yeah, I mean, well, since the last national, at the end of August or very early September last year, I basically announced that I was joining Tag Grading on in a senior managerial capacity as the VP of Business Development. So that's like my main role, I guess you could call it right now. But I have four things in my life right now. I've got Tag Grading, I've got my family, I've got my personal collection, and then I've got my content. And my content, I think, is really what you're talking about. And my content is really, it's blown up lately. So, if I just kind of give you a bit of the history there, I was doing Collectible Live for about 2 years. I did 66 episodes for Collectible, the fractional ownership company. I was doing a show every Sunday for them. And when they went out of business, that ended. And so I all of a sudden had 4 freed up days to do other content if I so wanted to. And I've been working with PWCC, as you do too, doing their auction ending coverage. And I kind of realized that, this is a really good idea. It gets a lot of engagement. Viewers love it. And I had also done a show for LCG Auctions, the pop culture auction house. And they reached out to me saying, we like what you do for PWCC. Would you consider doing something with us? And when Collectible Live ended, I thought, well, listen, I'm not going to look at this as a negative. I'm going to look at this as an opportunity to find other ways to really turn my content. And I have to be careful here because I have 2 content streams now, Rob. I've got my Sports Cards Live and Taking Stock shows, which are not auction ending coverage. But then I've got this auction ending coverage genre of content that I kind of pioneered. You've been successful. You've been doing it as well with PWCC. And I thought, I'm going to actually turn this loss of the collectible show and the revenue stream for myself into an opportunity. And so I reached out to a few people that I knew in the hobby. And I said, hey, would you be interested in me doing some live auction coverage for you? And I'm really announcing here for the first time, I've got 7 clients that I'm now doing auction coverage shows for.
You have 7 brands that you are doing auction coverage for.
7.
Wow.
7 different auction houses that I am now working with in partnership and doing live auction. And now some of them are once a quarter, so 4 shows a year. Some of them one of them is 12 times a year, once a month. PWCC is basically 48 times a year. I do 4 shows a month for them. So I mean, it's kind of cool how how I've created this service, this marketing service for auction houses. I'm getting paid to do it by all of them. No, not hiding anything there, of course. I love doing it. I'm passionate and authentic about it. I feel like it's servicing not only the auction house, but the consigners and the bidders. We're showing you, we're talking about the items. we're highlighting consigners items. Maybe that gets more bids. Maybe they get a higher price for their item. Maybe not. But I'm actually really my approach, Rob, is that I've been called out recently for he'll promote anything or whatever. I won't promote anything. That's not true. But I am leaning into this auction event live stream business that I basically started authentically, organically. Didn't know I was starting it when I did. That's the cool thing. I did not know I was starting this when I did. And now I'm leaning right into it. And I'm saying, yeah, this is what Jeremy Lee is doing. He does auction event live stream coverage services. I get paid by these auction houses to do it. And I love doing it. It's a ton of fun. So there's that piece, Rob. Then I got Sports Cards Live, which I do Saturday nights. I have 4 sponsors for that show. But that is, that's not about the sponsors. That show is about, it's about, educating, inspiring, exposing people to other hobbyists and how they approach the hobby, whether they're a business. Like last night, I had Eric Shemtov on from Whatnot, and he talked about his experience, and we touched on Whatnot. So industry insiders, passionate collectors, other content creators come on that show. And then Taking Stock is completely unsponsored. It's just a show I do with Dennis Zender. We stream it to my channel and to the Sports Card Dad. So Dustin is a partner in that show, but it's not a sponsored show at this point. Maybe it will be one day. I have no qualms about taking sponsorship money from a company that I am willing to align myself with, and I won't align myself with anybody. So my content has evolved. It's become, as far as the auction coverage goes, that is now a business. It's a service that I'm providing to, as you said, as I have 7 auction houses on PWCC is one of them, and 6 others as well. So I don't know, Rob, and then there's managing my collection, buying and selling cards, and adding to my PC all the time, which, as you know, I love to do, and I'm always doing. So between the family, tag grading, my collection, my content, I'm pretty busy.
Yeah, man. It feels like you're turning into the Ryan Seacrest of the hobby, right? And
Maybe.
in a good way, right? I mean, are you familiar with Ryan Seacrest?
Of course I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ryan Seacrest, I mean, he's really, I think, when you look at American Idol, you look at Ryan and Kelly, who he ended up taking over for Regis, or he took over for whoever was after Regis, but just one of these guys that arguably, when Ryan Seacrest attaches his name to an event, sometimes his name is actually bigger than the event. So he's drawing eyes to the event, and he's typically always doing it justice. He's absolute professional with what he does, and just like you're a professional with what you do, and you have a tremendous way of not only doing the auctions but even the interviews too. I've listened to your interviews, and I typically listen to every episode that you have of Sports Card Live, or the other shows that you do, and you just, your hobby knowledge and your way of interviewing guests and getting them to open up is a skill that is it's not matched by many at all.
Well, I appreciate that. I just thank you, Rob. I love what I'm doing, and I pride myself on keeping the shows exciting and fast action. No awkward silences. There's always something to talk about. If you watch me, you'll see, during Sports Cards Live and Taking Stock, my eyes are darting everywhere. They're going up there, over there, down here. Like, I'm always producing the show on the fly, and I'm making sure that when the guest stops talking, I've got something ready to say right away. So I just say thank you. And just, by the way, I'm not looking at the comments coming in. I turned them off. I don't want to get distracted. I like when my guest doesn't get distracted. And when you put them on the screen, my camera sits in front of my monitor, so I can't even see them on the. I can't even see this one by Buyer's Remorse, so I know is one of my biggest fans. So thank you, Buyer's Remorse. I appreciate that. I appreciate that from an anonymous YouTube account.
So I'm curious. So do you get flack for, I know when I, initially, took the partnership with PWCC and started doing their vintage auctions, I definitely felt I definitely felt some blowback from, the card community, which is kind of like bizarre to me, because there were so many opportunities that I turned down before doing the PWCC thing, so it was something I believed in. And when you're putting out content, I mean, 99.9% of the time you are not getting a dime to make content, so when all of a sudden you end up partnering up or taking on a sponsorship or something, you know, the fact that people will look at you differently to me is, I understand it, because I can see, I take myself out of the situation. I can kind of see it, but when you're in it, it feels like, man, it kind of hurts, right? I think initially when
Yeah.
people perceive you differently just because you've got in bed with a company, so to speak, right? But how's it been for you, given that now you've really taken on more partnerships, really taken on more sponsorships? I mean, you're out of
Yeah.
365. I would imagine you're what, probably 2/3 of the year of every single day, 2/3. You've got to be doing card content, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%, 100%. I'm busy all the time doing content, and if it's not the actual time I'm streaming, it's preparing for the stream. I prepare for everything that I do. Um, but your question about like how do you deal with it? Yeah, I mean, I've got people that criticize me and they think they know me. People think they know you, but they don't. They think they know what your intentions are, but they don't. So I just look at it like, you know what? I'm over here doing what I'm doing. I'm very comfortable and authentic, and I don't ever have any conflict in my head about how I'm approaching things. And having the odd hater or critic, like buyer's remorse, like I need guys like that out there because number one, they're bringing more attention to what I'm doing. So that's good for me. And number two, as you know, if you don't have haters, you're probably not doing it right. Or, people that criticize you. So the fact that I got a guy like Buyer's Remorse showing up to spending their valuable time watching me talk says a lot more about them than it does about me. But someone like Buyer's Remorse that's a notch in my belt. That's like, I need people like that because that tells me that is positive reinforcement that I'm doing it right, because people only punch up, right? People don't punch down. So it's good for me that I've got a guy like Buyer's Remorse out there. And Snow Dog, I see I'm the best YouTuber at answering softball question. Yeah, thanks. I'll call me the best at anything. Like, yeah.
So I'm curious. So with all this stuff that's going on, let's pivot a little bit because we could spend an hour talking about all this stuff, and I appreciate you actually made some of these announcements just now for the first time with some of your newer deals that are coming up. So, thank you for bringing that to the show. But so pivoting to national with all these things that you have going on at national, what do you forecast your week at the national is actually going to look like?
My time at National, well, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there at the tag grading booth. That's Tag is my company. I'm an investor. I hold a position. I'm a huge believer in what Tag is doing. So I'm going to be there at the Tag booth, probably at least 50% of the time. I'll be walking the floor. The extracurricular calendar is full. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see the people. I've got, so many good friends that are going to be there, Rob, yourself. It's going to be great to see so many friends that I've, had for 20 years to 1 year, some new friends I've made. I'm excited to see everybody. I'm excited to pick up some cards that I don't even know what they are yet. I'm not going in with a real checklist of things I want. So I'm excited to know what cards am I going to add to my collection at the national. But, for me, it's about the people. It's about being there, representing the Tag brand, representing the Sports Cards Live brand, saying hi, shaking hands with all of my live auction event coverage clients. Now I'm referring to these companies as clients because I'm providing them a service. So yeah, I'm excited about all that stuff. Sorry, what does Ziggy say? I've been a critical fan. I appreciate your hard work, your growth, and the content. Thank you both. Thank you, Ziggy. Appreciate that. And
Likewise,
Ziggy and I haven't seen eye to eye over the past 3 years all the time. But but he's consistent in what he in his approach to things, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. So this past week, if you follow me on Instagram, if you listen to the show, you'll know that I was at Bleecker Trading. I was part of a trade night, and I was offered a showcase space. So there were a few of us that got showcase spaces. So it was great. It was me, Cage Lawyer, Shayway Vlogs. A few people that had showcases. It was a great time, and your buddy walks in, right? And it's so funny because I've never met Leighton Sheldon in person before, but it's like you see him enough on your show or wherever it is he is, watching his Instagram videos, you hear his voice, and all of a sudden he kind of walks in, and I was kind of like, oh crap, that's Leighton. I was kind of taken back for a minute, like, because I wasn't expecting it. I'm like, oh, there's Leighton, cool. So he comes over, and we just started talking, and we talked about you for a few minutes, and just talked about the hobby, and just some of the relationships that I think we're able to build. I know this drum has been beaten to death, but like, the cards are great. The cards are why we're here. The cards will always be the biggest thing. But I think a big part of what has truly kept me where I'm at and kept me doing this show and doing the content, it's not the measly couple bucks I get from a partnership or a sponsorship. It is truly the relationships. It's truly being able to talk with viewers, with listeners, and really share my experience. So it was really cool to see Leighton, and and amongst a lot of other people. And really, that's because I've been introduced to him through your show. You know what I mean? So even though you didn't introduce me to him in person, you still introduced me to him. So it's like, I know him through you, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, that's the beautiful thing, is that, like, this hobby, like, Rob, I've got, like, I'm a fortunate guy. Like, I still have my friends from high school. I still have my friends from from grade school. I have my high school friends. I've got my university friends, and all the jobs long. I still keep in touch with people from every era of my life. And my hobby friends are like the ones that I talk to the most. I talk to you more than I talk to some of my other really good friends, like, that are non-hobby friends. But my hobby friends kind of dominate my social interact. You are the people I want to talk to the most, because we have this common interest in the cardboard. And then when you add a content creator, well, now we're kind of in the same thing, right? We're dealing with some of the same issues that content creators deal with, whatever they may be. We're navigating the space. We're aware that we're under the microscope. People are watching, critics looking for things to pick on, like, that's their sport. Is a lot of people, their sport is just picking on content creators, which is fine. People need a hobby, and that's I guess that's a great hobby if that's what gets you off at night. So, but the friendships have been, it's amazing. Like, some of my best friends are through the hobby, and some of them I've had for 15 years. Some of them are more recent, since 2020, and the hobby boom happened. And meeting people like you and others has been one of the most awesome things to happen in my life, is making these friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I brought up this screen here a bit prematurely, so don't mind me. I'm actually just going to remove it for a minute, because I definitely want to get your opinion on some of the premier auction results that you and Adam, the Real 27 guy, covered last week. But before we do that, let's stay where we are with National. Any thoughts? Is there anything specific that you are looking forward to at National, whether if it's just building more relationships, if it's trying to actually pick up something? Do you have a card in mind, or do you have cards in mind? Are there any specific events? What is it that you are looking forward to most, that okay, this is top 5 of my priority list for Rosemont?
Well, number one priority for me is going to be being at the tag booth and showing people around, and helping people understand what tag is doing, and the value proposition of tag. So that's probably number one. From a card perspective, yeah, there's some cards that I'm going to have my eyes open for, a couple of specifics, but I'm not like, I'm not going to hardcore, like I have to pick up a 33 Gaudi Lou Gehrig. Like I'm looking for one, but I'm not going to pick one up just to pick one up. It's got to be the right card at the right price from the right person in the right holder. You know, it's a lot of things have to fall into place for me to buy a card there, but I'm excited to buy some cards and leave with a stack of new cards for my collection. And then event wise, I mean, man, I've got a full, it's almost like a full calendar during the show. Like the night of the Wolfpack trade night, which I'm committed to coming. I've got 4 events that night, man. 4 events that same night.
I know.
I was just telling my buddy on the phone, I've got, like, how am I going to get to all 4? I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but that's sort of tough. Like, I don't want to, diss anybody by not showing up to their event, but I also can only be at one place at a time. So I'm looking forward to managing that for sure.
Yeah, and I think, and I appreciate that, and I think as far as my trade night, the Wolfpack trade night that we're doing, listen, I think there are no expectations about any specific person to be there. Like I'm fully understanding. Like Jeremy, if you don't go, trust me, there are going to be zero hard feelings because I know the place is going to be mobbed. It's going to be crazy, and like, it's not like I'm getting married and I'm inviting you and you're RSVPing and then no showing. You know what I mean? So listen, at National, there's no it. I know you can kind of have like, this is what I want to do, but you can have an agenda. But to think we're gonna check all those boxes in our agenda, it's impossible because I think we all know National, when it comes to during the day, it's really about the cards and the people on the showroom floor, right? Like when you're inside that convention center, it's almost like life does not exist outside the convention center. Then once 5 and 6 o'clock comes and it's time to wind down, well, chances are we need to eat, probably change, and now we only have a few hours to really pack in a year's worth of next year at National we got to get together, next year we got to do this year. So there's so many things going on. But yeah, it's listen, those are luxury problems, right? Luxury problems being pulled in different directions and whatnot. So definitely looking forward to it. We're only a couple weeks out. So I'm curious, before we jump into these sales, what do you think TAG needs to do? What does TAG need to do and accomplish in order to get over that, proverbial hump of maybe overtaking a brand like Beckett when it comes to grading? Like what does TAG need to do to get in that top 3 of grading companies?
I mean, yeah, it's a great question. So at the National, TAG will be doing on-site grading. So the grading equipment will be there. You will be able to see it. You'll be able to look, like, it's not like you're going to walk around it, but there's going to be like see-through walls. So you're going to be able to see the TAG grading machine in action. So that's pretty cool. I think TAG needs to continue doing what we're doing. TAG is very tactical, very well run, very well managed. It's the best culture I've ever been involved in any company. I've got a 25-year professional services career in my rearview mirror. I've been part of big companies and senior management and held VP roles several places. So I'm speaking from a perspective of experience when I say that TAG is probably the most well-run company I've ever been a part of. So that makes me very encouraged. The culture is amazing. TAG is very strategic in the way it's rolling out because it doesn't want to say it can do something and then not do it. So TAG is being very calculated, very careful, and rolling out slowly. So the next thing the TAG needs to do is really open the floodgates. We had a grading drop yesterday. It sold out in 20 minutes. I mean, that's par for the course for TAG. The drops sell out really quickly. We have drops to control the intake so that we are giving each card the amount of QA that it deserves. Like you won't find a hair or a dirt inside a TAG slab. Like everything, we're so meticulous there. And so I think TAG needs to continue doing what it's doing, needs to get to the point where we can open up the floodgates, and really that's going to come down to the QA process being really condensed and better automated. Because right now we're being extremely careful. We always will be, but there's a piece of tech that was recently installed that is now going to speed up that process. And depending on what other impacts it has on the system, which is why we're giving ourselves a period of time to kind of troubleshoot it and make sure everything's working like perfectly so that everything's right. Then we can open the floodgates and start taking in more submissions. We can't service our demand. Our demand far outweighs the supply that we're putting out there right now. So that's a good sign. I guess the other thing is continue to be transparent with what we're doing there. Like, listen, people know that I love what we're doing at TAG. I wouldn't have invested money in the company if I didn't believe in it and think that it was the best way to grade cards. But to become like, I don't know how you just worded it, but to become up there with the Beckett's and the SGCs and the CSGs in terms of the gem rate numbers every day, week, month, I think we just have to continue our slow build. I think that within a couple of years, we'll be right up there. I saw a comment from somebody saying TAG will be bankrupt in 24 months. I mean, that's just a funny comment from somebody who probably doesn't have much experience in business or the hobby or really anything. I understand people make, HGA kind of ruined it a bit for TAG, ruined the narrative, because HGA kind of came out and said they could do something that they couldn't do. TAG doesn't do that. When I say TAG is well run, Rob, I mean, it's not even, it's hilarious just how well run TAG is from the top down. An amazing organization, 10 years in the making, not an upstart grading company. So yeah, I mean, continue to do what we're doing. Anyone who's been to the TAG facility, and trust me when I say some of the biggest people in the hobby have been to the TAG facility, love what they see and realize that TAG is not just a fly-by-night company. It's here to stay. So yeah, I mean, listen, I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what TAG is going to do to disrupt. TAG doesn't need to get business from Beckett or PSA to be successful. There's enough people, Rob, in the hobby who have not ever used a grading company because they don't trust the subjectivity of human grading. I think that's an understandable sort of way to be. And for those reasons, they've been waiting for a company like TAG to come along. There's so many people that have been waiting for TAG without knowing what they were waiting for. And that's enough business to make TAG successful right there. Will we get some market share from PSA, Beckett, and the others? Of course we will. I mean, there are people who just want to try something new and people who are willing to believe in consistent grading. We're the only company that can truly offer consistent grading. So yeah, I'm excited for the future.
Yeah, and yeah, very well said, man. Very well said. It sounds like you're a believer, and I'm sure it's hopeful thinking and wishful thinking as well, like you said, because you're an investor in the company and you play a prominent role there. So you want to see this company succeed, and you've talked about that, right? You're almost like the face of TAG, at least as far as I'm concerned. You're like the face of TAG. So you absolutely want to see this company succeed, and you don't want to see anything. You don't want to see a company like this, go in the wrong direction, because then that's your name, your face, your reputation that could be on the line, right? So,
yeah, I have 100% confidence in the team there to not allow that to happen. For the company to go down the wrong. Like our leadership group is just way too strong, way too experienced, professional, hobbyists. They know what they're doing. You say I'm probably the face of the brand from a social media perspective.
Yeah.
But our CEO, Steve Cass, he and the Cook brothers, these guys are the face of the company when we're dealing with everything from a corporate perspective. These guys they're dealing with the show promoters. I'm not dealing with the national promoters. They're dealing with them when we're setting up our booths and at the Burbank show, and all the suppliers, all the vendors, the customers. I get questions from customers, but I'm not involved in the day-to-day at TAG Grading. I don't go to the office. I live, I'm in Calgary, they're in Los Angeles. So I'll be spending more and more time there as we ramp up the business. But yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful, of course, But I see so many signals from the hobby that even though people don't think they're ready for something like this, I think the hobby's ready for it. And it's just going to take some time for, the majority of people to recognize that, but we don't need the majority. Tag doesn't need the majority. Tag only needs the people that want consistent and transparent grading. If you want to be able to send, like I always say, why would I get a card back that comes back an 8? Now I'm going to pay them to grade it again to hope to get an 8.5 or a 9. Why do you have to pay the same company twice to do the right job, to do the right job the second time? Shouldn't they do it right the first time? The fact that you can get a different grade, a higher grade on your card the second time is kind of mind-blowing when you think, if you step out of the hobby, like we accept it now, that's the way it is. But if you tell anyone who's not in the hobby this is the way grading works, they'll think we're a bunch of idiots, that we will pay the same company twice to give us a different grade the second time. The card hasn't changed, especially when the grade goes up. It doesn't really make sense. So if you want consistent grading and you want to know why your card got the grade it did, because you get a full report showing you all the defects. And the other thing I want to mention about Tag is that Tag isn't a harder grader than any other grading company just because our system can see the defects. We grade in accordance with industry standards, and then we just apply the automation to that, to the grading, to the process. And that's a 10-year system in the making. So I love it, man. I mean, I didn't think it was possible. Ziggy will tell you, I didn't think that automated grading was even possible 3 years ago. Did a show on it. We concluded, you'd need to prepare for it for 10 years and spend millions of dollars doing it. Meanwhile, that was actually happening. It was 9 years old at the time, and they were investing millions into developing the software for it. So I'm just glad that I have the option to get my personal collection cards graded by a consistent, reproducible, accurate, and transparent grading company.
Yeah, no, and very well said, man. Very well said. So we have a lot of comments coming in, but not going to be able to get to all of them. But a lot of great comments. So before we transition, I'll read one. Hobby Champ says, "I'm a Tag believer. We're just got to get pricing lower than PSA and the ability to grade any card." And I would agree. I think that I would definitely give Tag. I've already given Tag a chance with some modern stuff, but it was really just to get an idea of like, okay, what do the slabs look like? What's the printout that I get with it, with the information and whatnot. But I mean, I would love to be able to send 50 random vintage cards that I have in raw, just to kind of get the report back and see what just why not. I can't wait for that as well. But yeah, a lot of comments that I'm not going to be able to get to for now. So sorry, guys. So let's transition, Jeremy. Is there anything you wanted to say based on anything we said so far that you want to put a cherry on top of, Jeremy, before we move on?
Just thank you to Hobby Champs. Great Twitter follow, by the way. I'll just say that this comment here, Tag is right now only grading cards from 2004. There's a lot of limitations based on the current state of the system, but it's expanding all the time. So Tag will be going back to 1989 by the end of the year. So you'll be able to grade cards back to, so it's 11 more years of card sets that will be within the Tag database. And then, we got to be able to do die cuts and acetates and auto patches and all these things. It's all coming. It's just that it's not there yet. And we're not going to say where we can do it. So either wait until then to get those graded, or save your cards like I'm doing to get them graded when the system can finally accommodate those. I don't think it's that far away. We'll be back to 1989 by the end of this year, and hopefully we'll be at like auto patches and die cuts. Hopefully by the halfway through next year. I can't speak. I don't know exactly when. This is total speculation. I don't know when we'll be there, but I'm excited to get there when we do. Titty Subs is wrong. People are already cracking PSA slabs to grade with Tag. So pretty funny comment from Titty Subs, who doesn't know who's just not speaking from an uninformed perspective.
And let's be honest, right? There was a time when, PSA slabs were, PSA was kind of laughed at. There was a time when Beckett was laughed at. There was a time when SGC was laughed at, and SGC's been around for quite some time. And they just until recently didn't start getting that full on hobby respect, even though vintage collectors, as have held SGC in very high regard for quite some time. So so you can't ever really say what grading company will reign supreme and which one won't. But yes, it's going to take a lot to overtake PSA, that's for sure,
Of
in
course.
terms of popularity. So Jeremy, moving on, let's talk about you doing the PWCC premier auction every month with Adam, the Real 27 guy, because you've been doing this now for quite some time. And being someone that watches so many auctions as you do, and like you said, you know, you're now
My
turning
business.
7 different brand of auctions into events, right? So you're not new to this. So tell me about what you've learned from doing the premier auction, because the premier auction, these are big money cards. Most cards that end up getting sold in this, if not all of them, are all typically in that high end category. So what have you learned about the auction process and the hobby by doing these premier auctions as much as you've done?
I mean, I don't know that I've learned anything too new, Rob, except that the hobby is always it's always strong. Even when it's not, it's still like people love to, you know, put up the sky is falling kind of narrative about the hobby. But one thing I've noticed is that even while prices have come down from where they were at the peak, we're still higher than pre-pandemic. Not to say we're always going to be higher. We may not be, but we still are, you know, generally speaking. But we're still seeing new records being set all the time on certain cards. You know, we're learning that scarcity, that really, you know, there's a big separation between the 6-figure and up cards, 6-7 figure and up cards to the you know, this prospecting card. Like there's lots of cards that are I don't know, like just the ultra modern stuff. You know, people got so excited about that during the pandemic and realized that was a bad move. I wasn't buying all those cards during the pandemic. I was thinking to myself, you know, maybe there's room for 15. I thought there was room for 15,000 PSA 10 Luka Doncic Prism rookies, because I thought, well, you get more than that into the arena where they play their games. There's more fans than that. So why wouldn't that be enough? But it's proven that I was wrong. Right now, there aren't enough people to consume that many cards. So the card has come down in value. But so what I've learned is that common high population cards are always going to be cyclical based on how the player is performing. And it's like you're going to have more more down cycles and up cycles for those types of cards. I've also learned that the truly scarce, desirable cards are always going to be valuable. Now, they may not be as valuable as they were 2 years ago, but they're always going to be valuable to the point of being like significant money. Like 20 grand for a card is big money for any card, anytime, really. If you think about it, just a piece of cardboard. I've also learned that, as we just saw 2 nights ago, or on Thursday night, that like people will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on certain cards because they want the best of the best. If it's a Pop 1 PSA 10 69 Topps basketball tall boy, they're going to spend $100,000 just to get that card. The 1970 Maravich rookie. This is a Pop 2 PSA 10, sold for over $500,000. I mean, Maravich, listen, he had a great career, great player, but he's not Michael Jordan or Wayne Gretzky or Tiger Woods or Tom Brady. And yet he sells for $500,000. So, I mean, you know, there's opportunity though there to buy cards cheaper now than 2 years ago. Like right now is probably the best time to buy cards since 2019. And you could have said that last week and the week before and the week before. But if you're looking to buy the best of the best, and I'm not talking about Tom Brady championship tickets that have really, the fact that there's one on the auction block once or twice a month, even though there's only 100 in the population, it's kind of tainted that card from it doesn't feel scarce anymore because you can find one in any month you want. So I don't know, man, lots of things I've said there, but so I start out by saying, I don't know that I've learned anything new, but I guess I learned a few things covering and the other is just the people love love watching cards sell for lots of money. And it's fun watching these shows because if you, even for me doing the shows, if I have a PSA 8 Wayne Gretzky rookie and there's one on the block tonight on PWCC or MC Sports Cards or Slab Sharks or wherever, I want to see how that card sells, how it compares to my copy. Is mine stronger, weak for the same grade? And just enjoy watching the hobby go by. And, I don't like to watch the values constantly because it can be depressing at times. It can be as depressing as it is exciting when things are going up in value. But it's still fun to see different cards sell on that night and see what they sell for and watch those bids come in at the end. I find it to be a ton of fun.
Yeah, no, and very well said, man. You packed a lot in there. So this clearly was the big boy. This clearly was the one that I think stole all the headlines from that auction, right? And that's the 1970 Topps Pete Maravich rookie, PSA 10. PSA 10. Let me ask you, who is buying this card? If you had to put on your thinking cap here, who do you think is the person that's buying this card?
Yeah, I think it's somebody who is competing on the PSA set registry. So the PSA set registry is the thing where you register the serial numbers of cards you own so that you can be on their leaderboard. It's a leaderboard basically, right? And the higher the grade, the higher your score is. So there's probably it's probably either because it took two bidders to get to 550, right? Somebody bid 540 if somebody else bid 550. So it's people who are either competing for the PSA Basketball Hall of Fame set registry or the 1970 Topps Basketball set registry, and they want their name to be at the top. And only two people can own a Maravich PSA 10, which is probably the most heaviest weighted card in that particular registry. So it's got to be set registry people, because I think if you're just a collector of Celtics or Hall of Famers, you're okay with a really nice 9 versus having to spend the extra $500,000 to get the 10. And so that's a big premium just to get the PSA label, because really that's what you're paying for there is the PSA label. And I think that the PSA set registry has been the biggest thing that has pushed PSA to be the behemoth that it is. People will buy the holder more than they will buy the card a lot of the time. Now, there is a contingent of people, including our friend 1956 Topps guy, who is one of these guys who understands that, I can save a lot of money and get a nicer card. And I'm not saying that's the case with Maravich, but it might be that one of those 9s is stronger than the 10s, in which case I'd rather have that 9 than the extra $500,000. But there's people that just want to compete on the set registry. And I do believe that is, it's like the joke that, people would buy PSA 10 slabs without cards in them just because they say PSA 10. I call it the PSA spell, and kudos to PSA for 30 years of building that up. I mean, what an amazing brand they have built, and credit them for even building the hobby. They're partially responsible for the hobby being where it is today and the values being there. Some people like that, some don't. Some think grading ruined the hobby. It turned it from a hobby into a business. Hey, it happened. Either adapt or leave the hobby. Don't let the door hit you on the way out if you don't like the way it is, or just carve out your own space and make it work for you. So, yeah.
And so I'm going to ask you to make yet another assumption. I'm just asking you to just make a lot of assumptions here, right? So I would absolutely agree. It's someone that has a vested interest with the PSA set registry. So it's safe to say that this person is building this set because when they feel like is the next boom or the next real spike in the hobby, they're likely looking to cash out, I would imagine, right? So no, unless you are worth 100 million or a billion, I can't imagine someone's paying this type of money to own a PSA 10 set just so they can say they're king of the registry without having some sort of really detailed exit strategy. What do you think?
Maybe. I think for anyone who's spending $500,000 on a Maravich rookie should, if you don't have $100 million in either like net worth or even better, like liquid resources, you probably overspent. I mean, that's a lot of money. $500,000. I mean, you have to be a very, very wealthy person to put that into a piece of cardboard. Now, you also consider these investments if you're doing that, because that's a lot of money. You know, it's a lot of money. You can buy a property, you can buy a fourplex in a lot of cities for that kind of money. So, yeah, I think it's somebody who has the cash available, loves sports cards, and probably figures that when they are going to sell, because it's time for them to sell, that they're going to at least get their money out of it, and maybe with some appreciation. I mean, you know, North American society, we love our sports. We love our sports cards. It's, you know, it's just a way of life. It's part of culture. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. Snow Dog, I wish $500,000 could get me a mansion in Calgary. I wish it could. Not even close. But who wants to live there? Now you're bringing out the finest tonight, Rob.
Well, listen, you know, I'm you know, what can I say? What can I say? So let's take a look at this one right here. This is one that sold this past Thursday night, and this is the 1957 Topps Bill Russell rookie PSA 8. All right. Now, here's the thing. Beautiful card, sold for $120K. Now, the all-time high on this is $400K. So we're still a bit far off than what the all-time high was. But when you look at this card, you look at the centering, it looks like it's probably close to 50-50 right to left. Looks like it's probably maybe 60-40, 70-30 top to bottom. Did anything about this card surprise you, or did it fall where you thought it likely would?
Yeah, if I recall, does this one have some fish eyes in it somewhere? I'm not sure. The centering is very good. You know, that's another one of the sort of problems with, not problems, but with a simple 10-point grading scale, is that there's so much variance within any certain grade. This is a near mint to mint 8. Well, near mint to mint, there's a large bandwidth there of conditions that the cards can be in. So I'd rather see this beside the one that sold for the all-time high, and then to go from there and decide. Interestingly enough, Rob, in this auction, there were two other Bill Russells. There was a 5.5 and a 6. The 5.5 sold for, I think, almost double what the 6 sold for.
I know.
So that's a great sign.
Yeah.
that really, like, savvy, discerning collectors are willing to pay more for a nice card versus just a card versus just the as Maddie C calls it, the sticker, you know, versus just the grade on the label. So, and that to me, even from a Tag perspective, is a great sign for a company like Tag, who can grade consistently and accurately and reproducibly. And I just think it's great that the 5.5 outsold the 6 by a wide margin, because it was a nicer card. So yeah, I thought that was great. But again, if I'm comparing two different cards of the same grade, I want to see them beside each other to say, you know, well, maybe this is kind of why it didn't come closer to the all-time high.
Yeah. And, you know, just last week, I did an episode, Trends That I'm Seeing. And one of the trends that, you know, I basically touched on two trends. I touched on the trends of gambling in the hobby. And I don't mean placing bets on anything. I mean, you know, people continuing to buy into box breaks and prospecting. And I was talking mostly about prospecting on the gambling element of it. But another trend that I had mentioned that I've been seeing is that, you know, people are just, it seems like, I know that the higher intelligent vintage collectors, or I shouldn't, what I mean by higher intelligent, I mean like higher hobby intelligence, like they've been in this longer. They have been buying the card, not the grade, for some time now, but it does feel like the overall hobby is now becoming more and more aware that this is what vintage collectors do. So even super modern collectors or super modern flippers are well aware of vintage by the card, not the grade, right? It's now become everyday language now, by the card, not the grade. And that's a beautiful thing for vintage collectors, and I think probably not a great thing for grading companies.
Yeah, no, you're right. So there is the movement, and you know, you're part of the group championing it. Maddie C, Matt Rocker, 1956 Topps guy, there's a bunch of people, that have their own platforms on Instagram. Maybe they're not doing videos or podcasts, but they have social media platforms putting that information out there, showing the differences. And Maddie C does a great job.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
here's a Ricky Henderson for $5,000, and here's one for $500,000. Show me the difference. Like, there isn't a difference. And the funny thing too is that we know that cards get bumped from, say, a PSA 9 to a PSA 10. Well, would you want to be the person that paid the super premium for a PSA 10 that was once in a PSA 9 holder? Like, would you? And it can go the other way. Would you want to pay the super premium for a card that's in a PSA 10 holder that next time it gets graded, not that it would get cracked, but if it got graded on a different day, could have been a 9 depending on that day at the shop, So, I mean, yeah, I think it is a great thing that people are going that. Now, you mentioned that might not be a good thing for grading companies. It may or may not be. I mean, it just depends. Like, I don't think it's a great thing for human grading companies, but for a company like Tag, where people just want to know what they're having. Like, Tag's whole thing is know what you're buying, know what you're selling. There's no guessing games here. Like with human grading companies, it's a guessing game. They don't tell you why your card got the grade it did. Beckett gives you subgrades, but they don't tell you where to look. I mean, until you get like a map of the card with all the defects, which is what Tag does give you, you don't know what you're buying. You don't know what you're selling. And we know that for a fact. I've seen all sorts of examples of a card that, this is a PSA 4, now it's a PSA 9. Like, we've seen some crazy gaps in grades between the two times these things were graded. I once had a card, I had it graded by BGS. It was a 5.5. Same card, I had graded again, a 9.5. And I thought to myself, isn't that weird? Like, I could have sold that in the 5.5. It was a raw grade 5.5. I could have sold it like that. And I was disappointed. I don't even want, maybe I'll sell it. Well, I'm glad I didn't. Cracked it I cut it out of the raw grade, and I submitted it to BGS again for a hard grade, 9.5.
Wow.
5.5 to 9.5. Now, listen, I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm saying anything bad about BGS. It's the nature of human grading.
Yeah.
And the hobby realizes that. The hobby accepts it, and the hobby puts it up on a pedestal and pays big money for it. But that's what a lot of people in the hobby do. And I didn't think something like Tag was possible, but when I went to when I vetted them for the first time, I went down to see what they were all about. I was blown away by what I saw, Rob. I mean, not only the technology and the equipment, but also just the level of like where they were and how this is not like, this is a legit organization. And I was just blown away and so happy that I could finally, again, get cards graded by a company that will show you why. And now, what we're finding at Tag is that people are actually breaking out PSA slabs and sending them to Tag to find out what the condition actually is. Like, we actually want to know what our cards are. And the funny thing is, and the really cool thing, people don't even care if they get 8s or 8.5s with Tag. They're just glad to have the card in a beautiful slab with knowing why it got the grade it did.
And one thing that always comes to mind when it comes to grading is I could remember Jason Kuntz, obviously Otia Sports, and he's been on your show many times, my show many times, and I remember him saying that he has learned over the years to figure out the waves in which PSA is grading. Like he figured out, and I don't know if he can figure that out now, or he might have kind of said, I'm not sure about now, but he said in the past he could tell that they're in like a 6-month period of just like cranking out PSA 10s, and then he could tell when they're in a down period where it almost appears like it's pop control. Now, I can't say whether that's true or false, but I can only take him for his word that that's what he's been able to see and what he's experienced. So if any of that is true, that tells me that it's not only the human element of grading, but it could also be the corporate element of grading as well.
Yeah, listen, I never wanted to believe in pop control or quotas or like that kind of thing, but I can't help myself because I've seen PSA 9 O-Pee-Chee Gretzky's that are nicer than the 210s. And I've seen them in person. I've held them. I've inspected them. So I find it hard to believe that there isn't some degree of pop control going on, at least for certain cards with human grading companies, which is, I don't know, like the other, like I also say, I don't think that PSA is an example. I don't think they've changed their grading standard. Maybe they have. Like, I don't know for sure. I haven't studied their versions of grading standards since their inception in the 90s. But my perception now is I don't think that I don't think that they've changed their grading standards. I just think they've changed the degree to which they adhere to their grading standards. And that's a lever that any grading company, any human grading company can use. That's a lever that you can use to drum up business or take down business. I remember being at the Toronto Expo the year of the Connor McDavid Young Gun. And I remember it was like people could not believe how many raw grade BGS 10s they were getting. And you could I remember looking at something, well, what's that on the corner there? It's like, well, the more 10s you give out the first day of a card show, the more submissions you're going to get at that card show. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm only speaking from my observations and from what people at the show that weekend told me. And I'll never forget that, because I was like, holy crap, there's like so many BGS 10 McDavid Young Guns in these raw slabs coming around. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be careful with these cards, because there's just so many of them in high grade. So, but yeah, that is a lever that they have if they choose to use it. I don't think it's a lever they should use. I think it's not a great way of doing business, but if they are using it, and they're not going to ever say they are, but if they are, then I mean that's something that we have to be cognizant of, that it's potential. I think a lot of people believe it has been used. I personally believe that they do that at times, they being all human grading companies. But again, they've done a lot of great for the hobby too, and I have an extensive collection of cards in PSA and BGS slab. They only have 2 or 3 SGCs and 1 or 2 CGCs or CSGs. I think they're called CGC now. But yeah, I can't wait till tag goes back in time further, and I can crack out all my cards and put them in tag slabs and really enjoy them in a beautiful slab and know what I actually have.
Yeah, and I'm curious to know. Are there any plans for any kind of set registry?
Oh, there is. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Tag will have a set registry, and it will be unlike a set. It'll be way advanced from what you see with current set registries. There's Tag is extremely creative. It's like people who are open to it will be blown away, But of course, there are closed-minded people out there, of course, and then there's just people that want to see you fail. Like you've got a couple in your chat today, Rob. Between this where did he go? I'm looking at your comments now. This Snow Dog just wants to see you fail. Like he's that's a way of living life. It's not just a hobby thing. So, and that's fine, right? I mean, again, if we don't have people criticizing us, we're not getting as much attention as we probably should. So it's good that we have people like that to give us that kind of, like you're doing it right sort of feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jeremy, we're coming up on an hour here, and it was just want to thank you for giving some time coming on the show. You've been a great friend in the hobby and outside the hobby, and I just look forward to watching you continue to grow and continue to build the empire that is Jeremy Lee.
Thanks, Rob. Hey, man, always good hanging with you. Thank you for having me and letting me talk about tag and everything else, which wasn't the purpose of coming on with you today, but I appreciate the opportunity.
No, definitely, man. Listen, it worked out great, and thank you to everyone who's listening. Thank you to everyone that is watching. Thank you to everyone that's in the chat right now watching live. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to just a small percentage of the comments, but definitely the tag conversation has people fired up, good, bad, and indifferent. I think people are excited to have a AI-based grading company, that's for sure. And I think what was kind of disappointing and about probably HGA was, their claim was to be AI and to do everything graded by then. But then I think the whole designing your labels kind of, I think, I don't know. In my eyes, anyways, I never sent a single card to HGA. I thought it kind of, delegitimized what they were trying to do, and it didn't. It seemed like it was very like, I don't know, kind of like quirky, I guess is the word that's coming to mind. So, but from everything that I'm seeing, from everything people are saying in the chat, let me ask you real quick with the tag slabs, are they UV protectant?
Yeah.
And is that the only slab out there that is?
I mean, I honestly can't speak for the other companies. I wouldn't be surprised if CGC has some level of UV protection because their slab is by far the best of, in my opinion, theirs is the best of the grading companies. The CGC slab itself, just the look and feel of it, the clarity. Tag slab is very similar to theirs, although ours is clearer. If you put theirs up against ours, you'll notice that the CGC slab is blue plastic. Ours is clear. Despite that, it's still my favorite one compared to BGS, PSA, and SGC slab. Yeah.
Well, listen, again, keep up the great work, man, and look forward to seeing you at National.
Can I just say one more thing to
Sure.
the people in your chat? First of all, thanks everybody for joining, especially my friends out there. But to anybody who is critical of me or has I don't know, comments, questions, wants to question anything that I'm doing, please join me on one of my live streams when I'm not in an interview with somebody. One of my random AMA or just freestyle shows. Come on out. You're welcome to come out and ask me anything. I won't dodge any I have no questions to dodge. I have no reason to dodge any question. Everything I'm doing, I'm very comfortable doing and willing to face it head on.
All right. Beautiful. Well said, man. Well said. Well, guys, again, thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget, take care of yourselves and your collection. Have a good one.